Hi, and welcome to How I Made It. My name is Alice Weightman. I'm the CEO of Hanson Search, an international headhunting business specialising in marketing and communications. Throughout my journey as a headhunter, I've met some really inspiring people. And like many of us, I've wondered, how did you get there? Well, this podcast will attempt to answer that very question. Hi, I'm here today with Rachel Bell. Hi, Rachel.
Hey, Alice.
Delighted to have you here today to discuss about your career and how you made it. For those that don't know, but I'm sure you do, Rachel was the founder of Shine and recently was awarded a Lifetime Achievement for the PRCA, which is fantastic. So congratulations, Rachel.
Thank you.
You've been involved in so many different businesses, from PR to different industry sectors. Do you want to give us a little bit of a soundbite of what you've been involved in?
Well, a long time ago now, when I first started Shine, obviously I set out just with the ambition of, trying to stay in business. I think was probably my first and founding thought was, how am I going to make sure I'm here next month? But one of the things that was one of the founding principles really of Shine was I wanted to build a business where people felt they could be listened to and heard and valued. And we were probably one of the early sort of employee brands in the marketplace. And it was born out of a quote from Nelson Mandela, which is, if you let your light shine, you unconsciously give others permission to do the same. And that sentiment and that sort of philosophy, if you like, led me into not only, finding great talent and working with great talent, attracting brilliant people, but then in order to continue to support them on their journey, we ended up starting lots and lots of businesses out of the Shine business. And probably in our heyday, we'd bought about 8 companies came out of Shine, including Mischief, which is one of the biggest, John Doe, and now the Academy, which is now part of Shine, and Shine has become the Academy, if you like. And this journey has been about trying to build best-in-class businesses by nurturing and developing best-in-class talent. So,
Rachel, you're an entrepreneur, but now also a mentor for businesses. Tell me a little bit about becoming an entrepreneur, and was that sort of a decision you made, or was it something that you sort of initially fell into and then wanted to produce this best-in-class business?
Well, unwittingly, I fell into starting my own business. My dad had his own business. I probably, for some reason, felt that I was going to be able to run a business, probably off the back of, no real foundation or real grounds for believing that. I just probably had it in my bones that I thought this is something that, how hard could it be, is kind of probably what I thought. I fell into it a little bit because I sort of fell into the industry, if you like. I started off my career working in the hotel industry. I left school at 17. I'm getting on to a ripe old age now. And so when I first started out, it was kind of possible to sort of crack your way into the industry without a degree, if you like. And I ended up having had, a quite successful career working in hotels, working in food and beverage, running a private dining club as part of that. And I got headhunted to recruit chefs, and ended up getting hired into a job which I was let go of almost instantly. And so found myself from sort of feeling a bit cocky and feeling like I got, life sorted, and that I was just, flying along in my little world. I found myself without a job. And actually that taught me a fantastic lesson, which is I think I'd probably been relatively sneering of people that didn't have a job prior to this moment, thinking, well, if you don't have a job, you mustn't be a mini cop, there must be something wrong with you. Suddenly when I didn't have a job, I think that made me realise that actually people find themselves in difficult situations for all manner of reasons and all host of reasons. So I think that did me a world of good early in my career to sort of become a bit more humble and have that humility. And it made me very much a person that when I gave out jobs later in life, of being incredibly clear and sure that if I was offering somebody a job, that I was basically bankrolling their mortgage.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't going to take that job away lightly. So that was an early sort of thing that did me good. But I sort of fell into the industry because then when I found myself without a job, I ended up getting offered a day's temping. I was temping in the city, but a company called Median Recruitment, that don't exist anymore, ended up saying, I can give you a day's temping work in a PR company. And that's how I ended up working in PR and not knowing a clue of what was going on around me, just thinking it was all a lot of fun, but kind of bamboozled and thinking, well, what on earth? What is everybody doing? I mean, we didn't really learn about marketing when I was at school, so...
Wow, gosh, I didn't know that about you at all. And so did someone kind of inspire you once you were in PR to think, do you know what, this is the place I want to be?
Well, I think I was at Fleishman Hillard for quite a lot of years, and not having known anything about the industry, I found the entire concept of the industry absolutely electrifying. I just thought the freedom, the responsibility, the pace, the energy. It took me quite a lot of years, I don't mind telling you, Alex, to even get a business card, never mind get my shit together. I was probably at Fleishman for about 3 or 4 years, having done quite sensible jobs before I got there. I was running quite a lot of things before I ended up falling into PR. But I found it, not having a degree, I found it quite hard to get taken seriously. But eventually that's what happened, and so almost the minute that I started to be operating in front of clients, I got promoted about pretty much every 6 months. I mean, I just literally went, in the time that I think it'd gone from account group coordinator to an account exec, I went from an account exec to an account director.
Wow, incredible.
Once I was in front of clients,
it clicked.
It was all great. I think people realised that I could sell, I could manage the finances, I could run the team, could make it happen.
Yeah. So sort of crystal balling a little bit, with all your experience now, obviously, you know, you go in and advise different businesses, you've written a book which we'll come and talk about. If you were sort of advising your 20-year-old self again, now with the knowledge of what you've got, what would you give your 20-year-old self in terms of the aptitude and skills that you need to be successful within PR and comms?
Well, there was one moment in my own career that was transformational for me, which will sound a bit odd maybe potentially, but I used to spend a lot of my time and energy when I was in my younger years worrying about getting my next promotion and constantly whittling away trying to sort of get on and feeling that people were missing the point. You know, I was a lot better than they were giving me credit for, and how did I get on to the next thing? Through personal circumstances of my own, I just ended up in a situation where it was really important suddenly that I did lose my job. I just thought, I really have cocked up here, and I really now need to not lose my job. Not that I was in danger of it, it's just personal circumstances. And so I just thought, I'm just going to keep my head down and do my work and not worry about anything other than what's immediately in front of me. And that for me was such a turning point. Rather than looking around me thinking, well, I'm better than that person, or I'm as good as this person, every single job anybody gave me, I absolutely smashed it out of the park. Just did whatever they'd given me, didn't question it. What do you need? When do you need it by? How many of them do you want? You know, what else would need to go with that? Could you give me this? You know, just absolutely knowing and nailing the job I was given. And for some reason, this was a real light bulb moment for me, because literally people couldn't give me enough work. They couldn't talk highly enough of me. They couldn't be more impressed. And I got promoted and promoted and promoted off the back of just being able to demonstrate I was really good at doing what I'd been asked to do. If you could be the person that just gets it really quickly and gets the thing done and is really reliable. I think the other real talent, if I was talking to my older self, is there was always in my mind a belief that the person that was briefing me knew completely what they were asking me to do, completely what was involved with what they're asking me. So sometimes I might get 3 or 4 people, I think this happens in agency life a lot, where you've got more than one person briefing you on client work. You might work into a couple of different account directors, what have you. And then when that happens, you believe that everybody is joining the dots and realising what else you've got on, or understanding the time frames that you've got to deliver something on. And people don't. You know, managing teams, I've realised that actually sometimes I don't have the full depth of understanding about what else might be going on for somebody. So your ability to manage upwards as a manager, and be able to say to someone, look, these are the things that I've got to juggle. I'm thinking we want to get this thing done first. I can get this done by this time, but if you feel that's not going to be quick enough, do you want to give that to somebody else? I would have got better at that faster.
So, Rachel, you've had quite an unusual career compared to other sort of industry leaders, in the fact that you've launched your own business and then you've sort of sprung off several other businesses and now have your own mentoring and consultancy, which is helping CEOs. Tell me a little bit what led you to sort of take that quite unique path, because actually a lot of people, when I've gone out and met them, talked a bit about your career and would say to me, gosh, it's really interesting what Rachel's doing. What gave you that sort of what was the light bulb moment when you suddenly thought, actually, do you know what, rather than losing this great talent, I'm going to help them launch new businesses?
I never thought of it like that. There's 2 elements to this. One is, first and foremost, I'm, a woman and a mum. I was always very clear that I wanted to have a family, and that I wanted to be able to do that alongside having my own business. And probably one of my big motivations for starting my own business was I couldn't really visualise myself working for the big corporate agency. And I don't know if it's better or worse these days, if I'm completely honest, but I certainly knew the atmosphere then, in terms of anybody that was clocking out early, as they saw it, from work because they've got kids to do the school run or what have you. People can be really tough on people that have got commitments outside of work. And I used to sort of look at that scenario and think, I really don't want that to be me. So the only way I could really see managing around that, on the one hand, was to be my own boss from that perspective if I was going to have kids. The other thing is I fell in love with a man who was an actor, and I kept thinking, I have no idea whether he's going to make a Bean or be James Bond, frankly. And I knew I wouldn't be able to settle in my own mind if I hadn't had a crack at things myself. I was quite happy to sort of live in a 2 up, 2 down if I'd had a go. But if I hadn't, I think I might have got a bit twitchy. So there was a personal need to, I didn't want to, I wanted to stay with the guy that I was with, so that was a good motivation. But in starting my business and off the journey that I'd had up to that point from a career perspective, that point I was saying to you about wanting to give people the opportunity to do their best work and feel valued, one of my KPIs in the business in the first year that I started Shine, we had 6 goals, 2 client goals, 2 business goals and 2 staff goals. Within the staff goals, so one was to help people shine and one was to hire the best to be the best. But within those, in terms of what our employee commitment was to never lose anybody through lack of career growth. And one of the goals that we used to ask, one of the commitments we started back was to never miss an opportunity to learn. So we wanted people that wanted to come and learn, and we wanted to give people the opportunity to always better meet their career expectation. And I was really good, I think, at finding fantastic talent. I feel like I've worked with so many amazing people in the industry, and I always believed in hiring people that are smarter than yourselves. And I've definitely found more than my fair share of smart cookies in this industry. And so it became apparent to me early that if I wanted to really fulfill the ambitions for that, help them fulfill those ambitions, probably born out of my own ambition of wanting to give them the reins of their own opportunity. It led me early into encouraging people that I was working with into another startup business. And we had long started a tradition of building best-in-class businesses. All of those businesses have been best agency, best new agency, and some best mid-size agency. So being best-in-class agencies was my bread and butter. And so we wanted to take that model that we were building in terms of fantastic central head office capabilities, like fantastic finance, fantastic HR, fantastic operational capability, and we could use that kind of as the central block for all of the other businesses that came out of that. And that ended up going beyond PR, generate sponsorship, stoked talent management. We're both buying, and then I now have a spare parts business, I have an engineering business. In mentoring, I work with education companies, digital transformation businesses, tech businesses. So if you start to understand the business model and what makes certainly the consultancy model work, there are very many parallels into other businesses, all of which I feel like we've been having quite transformational journeys together, which has to say I think must be my personal calling.
Yeah.
It's definitely me living my best self.
Yes, and that's obviously brought now into brand Spanking, your consultancy, which is advising lots of startups and different businesses who are going on to win awards and doing really well.
Do you know, Alice, I registered brand Spanking as a business, oh my God, must be 18 years ago. And Brendan O'Connor, who was my finance director, who's outstanding, we used to laugh every year that I'd not really done anything with this brand Spanking brand. And when I've stepped back from being a CEO and become non-executive, supporting businesses and mentoring them, I thought I really need something to house my consulting business, which has become a bit more formed now. Actually we've got there's a few of us, and we're working quite a lot of agencies, helping them build best practice and become best-in-class agencies with all of the same, using those management systems to help them sort of speed up business planning. But it's been great. I love working across lots of different industries, and it's been great seeing each of those individuals go forward with their business, and a number of them we've taken them to sale. So yeah, it's good. It's definitely my calling, working in businesses.
Yeah.
So it was great to use the Spanking brand.
Yes.
Finally.
Absolutely.
For this business.
Yeah.
Which I'm loving.
I'd love to talk to you about diversity. You mentioned obviously a bit about being a working mum, but diversity is much broader than just the gender. What do you think businesses need to do in today's market to promote diversity and really make sure that as a communications industry we are much more diverse than what we are today?
One of the things that has confounded me for many, many years, primarily because I don't have a degree, primarily because, I went to a state comprehensive, and because, Shine's bread and butter was always a broad church of consumer business, whether even now the Academy works for Morrison's, Amazon, and, the types of brands that we were working for, within Shine, it would be Sky Bet, or it would be Slazenger, or, brands where PlayStation, as an example, you need to find gamers. One of the challenges is there are so many people that come either through university or through a public school background into the industry. I want to find people that are watching Emmerdale and watching, are gamers and, are following the footy, and they know what is actually, they were raised in the north and they understand actually what Mrs. Goggins is doing of a weekend, and mirror readers, mail readers, sun readers. That's what diversity is being able to really genuinely relate to the diversity in the economy of our country. Unless we attract people into the industry that reflect that diversity of our national footprint, we're never going to be able to do our best comms. In my opinion, particularly when we talk about media relations, where you need to be able to find the angles, the creative links into people's own lifestyle and interests. We need to have a diverse workforce, but we struggled, it seems to me, to find people from a college background versus a university background.
So you think businesses just need to take a more proactive approach in terms of searching and encouraging individuals in?
I mean, to be fair, I think the PRCA has really worked hard to tackle this. I think Francis Ingham, the Director General at the PRCA, is incredibly passionate on this point, and there's an enormous amount that's been done in terms of setting up the apprenticeship scheme, broadening the training programme to be able to actually get diploma or a certification through the PRCA training. It's just not an easy... It's genuinely not an easy thing to fix. The bit that puzzles me is lack of sort of racial diversity. John Doe, as an example, one of my agencies, they have an almost exclusively BAME workforce.
Right.
And they're a street youth agency working for lots of youth brands, alcohol brands, gaming. That's what they specialise in. And they do great client work. It's very much with a sort of an urban edge, and they bring in a most incredible creative talent from a very diverse background. They don't seem to have any problem doing it. But I think that's in part down to the approachability of the brand and the business to mean that you're in an environment where you're going to identify with all the work, and it feels a perfect fit. I don't think I've got the silver bullet, but I definitely think unless we are fishing from a very diverse pool, we're not going to get a diverse group of talent.
Absolutely. And diversity is happening. I see, at least it's on the agenda, number one, and it definitely see agencies and in-house teams starting to make a difference and change happening. And change does take a while, but some businesses really focus on it and others don't have it as a priority. So it's...
I feel like there could be, a college, university-wide creative shootout that happens across the year, where you're finding across a whole variety of creative sectors a kind of creative shootout to find people that would be in a pool that you might want. You might want to say, actually, have you considered PR, and would you like to come to your own sort of industry milk round, where you can meet a whole bunch of people. The Shine Grad Day, it's giving me goosebumps even just saying it, because I just remember the excitement that used to run through the whole agency used to be involved in Grad Day.
Wow.
Every single person in the agency. So people would be speed dated, by everybody. Different people would run a different section of the day. People would be involved in doing the shortlist telephone. Everybody in the agency used to go back to their own university to do part of the recruitment. We used to get the most extraordinarily long list of applicants, but we were always looking for that quirk, that point of interest, that bit of cheek, the little bit of nerve, the ability to bring some dynamism and energy to the room. And we used to, test them on their creative, but also on their pitching, on their writing. But most importantly, we used to do the speed date at the end, and everybody would speed date and see how people communicated. Because I think the thing with building teams is you want to find a place where you go to work where you don't really even feel like you've gone to work. You just feel like you're working with
absolutely
great people. And I hope I'm not talking out of turn for anybody that ever worked at Shine or is now working with somebody that ever worked at Shine. I would say it was an environment where we all felt we formed lots and lots of lifelong friends, many of which are all, at each other's weddings and bar mitzvahs and God knows what. So I'm sure that's true of many, many agencies across the industry, but I think the ones that do the best are the ones where they create an environment where people feel very much they're working with friends that they feel very like-minded, but can be very different from.
Absolutely. I mean, that brings me nicely on to the next question about company culture. There's a big shift in today's workforce of working independently, and we see a lot of a rise of freelancers across the industry. However, it sometimes can be counterintuitive to culture. So businesses looking to offer more flexibility, looking to take on more freelancers, how do they still maintain that positive, working, family, supportive, friendly culture?
There's an enormous challenge for the industry, and I don't think it's one that's easy to brush over. There was a trend, I don't know, must have started in the last recession, where budgets were getting cut, clients decided they didn't want to have agencies on retainer, and by those retainers diminishing, which I don't think is wholly true now, but it set a trend in place where clients stopped committing to 12 months worth of integrated campaign. It's not universally true, but where that happens, it's very, very difficult for agencies to build and form a depth of relationship with the client to do the best work. But it also means they haven't got the commitment to be able to commit to paying the mortgage of somebody that they've hired on a month in, month out basis. So retained income, or knowing your level of retained income, is really the golden bullet to being able to have a settled and retained workforce. And the extent to which you've got sight of that is going to dictate to what extent your staffing needs to be made out of contracting staff or freelance staff. If we end up with teams where everybody's freelance, and there are a number of people that are doing this actually quite well, I think for work returning mums can be a most amazing flexible solution to working remotely and sort of running your own account from home, if you like. So I don't think it's hard and fast that can't work. But if you want to have people working in teams, I think you do need to have at least 70% of your workforce that are structured and locked into a contracted environment, so that the visiting freelancers can be given a great home to be welcomed into and supported in and being given a great experience whilst they're there and they feel like they're part of the team. Because if you don't offer that up to a freelancer, you're not going to get. If they just put the person that's just plonked in the corner that no one talks to, that's not great for work, not for the client, not for the work, not for the individuals.
Absolutely.
So you have to have this, you have to have a very purposeful approach around people's behaviour to accepting and bringing in other people. And that needs to come from the top, and it needs to be really transparent and really clear, and it needs to be really proactive. So even if you're very few fixed people, even dictating how all the freelancers are going to work together for the time that they're in is led from the top. But it's not okay for people to skulk around and hide in corners, because we're a people business.
Absolutely.
And if we're not sharing ideas, and if we're not talking about what the problems are, or if we're hitting a roadblock and we've got no one to turn to, we're just never going to produce the best work.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what you feel is the biggest challenge the industry is going to face over the next year.
We're a business that is born heart and soul out of people. And, one of the things that disappoints me is when I hear people sort of maligning millennials. And I know that's a vastly unpopular viewpoint, and I know, Simon Sinek will, probably shoot me, but I'm actually a huge fan of millennials, and I think the big swathes of them are very entrepreneurial, they're very savvy, they're very sharp, and they want to be given great opportunities, and they just want to be done, they just want to be dealt with more like a business owner when they're not a business owner. And I think for business owners, that can present a bit of a conundrum, because they're a little bit like, well, you're kind of trying to get all the bits that I've been trying to get for me, and so it requires more transparency, more communication, more openness, more honesty, more trust. If we can foster those things, then I think we will end up with a more agile, a more poised, a more fun industry full of people that are getting the very best bit out of it. And if they can communicate openly and honestly through that, so that employers don't end up feeling burnt by people flip-flopping in and out and just wanting, as they say in some sense, all the water in their ditch, wanting everything their way, then if it can be genuinely sort of mutually beneficial, then we should be building an environment where it's bringing everybody what they need. But it won't happen without lots of communication. And my fear is if we get that wrong, then we're going to end up not being able to build really strong, sustainable careers for people where they feel their work's being valued, where they feel their career is rewarding. And it probably comes back to, if you push it further up the food chain, getting very real with clients around what the benefits are to them of giving their agencies greater levels of commitment, so they're in a position to give greater levels of commitment onto their teams.
Absolutely. So Rachel, I would love to hear a bit more about your book, which recently launched.
It did, and it's called Startups, Pop-Ups and Pivots, and I wrote it with an absolute god of the advertising industry, a proper 70s madman called Richard Hall, who's long been a mentor of mine and is somewhat of a genius, which is lucky. And the two of us put this book together because we basically wanted to be able to give entrepreneurs a back pocket full of mentors, very much asking them to sort of, mid-sized businesses that were running best-in-class companies, where they could share with people starting a business what it was that they had learnt, wish they knew, what their golden bullet would be in terms of advice, written up into a whole series of small snapshots. Richard Hall has the most wonderful, charming, engaging, funny writing style. He's wonderful, beautifully written, and it's a very easy read. It's so easy to digest. And the first part of that is those learnings from about 100 different entrepreneurs about what they'd learnt and what their advice was, which we've had lovely feedback on. It's actually been put forward by Kogan Page as their business book of the year, which is great.
Fantastic.
And then the second part of the book is a real how-to, belt and braces. If you're starting a business, what do you need to do? How do you go about it? What needs to happen? What's involved? And I think I would have loved to have had a book like that would have been giving me those kind of top tips. I really feel now, particularly in our industry, that it's about everybody mentoring each other.
Absolutely.
And people getting mentored is fantastic, and I'd like a scheme across the whole industry that is seeing people getting mentored, men and women, and finding those people to help them on their journey.
Absolutely. So finding the best humans.
Yes.
Absolutely. Fully behind that. So final question, Rachel. One piece of technology, it could be an app or anything you use that you couldn't live without, and ideally not your phone.
Well, this is something on my phone, so
that's allowed.
It's a slight cheat. But this last year, I discovered the app called Calm. And Calm does something called the Daily Calm, which is just slightly meditative, just 5 minutes, a couple of minutes, sort of thought for the day, if you like. It has meditation on there, which I can't concentrate on anything for longer than 2 seconds, so I don't manage to get into the meditation. But they do these things called sleep stories, which for me they're absolutely wonderful. And I think the whole app is a fantastic mental health tool, personally, and I'm a massive fan. So if you haven't tried it, I would try it.
I will do, definitely. Well, Rachel, thank you so much indeed for spending this time sharing your insights and inspiration on your career in the industry. I've really enjoyed it.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks, Alice.
Thank you. That's it for this episode of How I Made It. For more great interviews like this or information on how we recruit the best talent, please visit our website hansonsearch.com. Thanks for listening and see you next time.